Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to answer some questions that have come in because a whole lot of them are coming in on the exact same topic. We have talked for months about how the Biden administration appears to be shifting its focus when it comes to American foreign policy to countering near peers. Near peers are countries that are near our power level, they are almost our peer. Specifically, when we say this, when this term is used, we're talking about Russia and China. Those are the two nations that are our near peers. We're not talking about lesser powers anymore. And we've talked about how this would impact our aid efforts and diplomatic efforts, stuff like that. We haven't talked about how it would impact our military posture in the United States. There's a buildup on the Ukrainian border of Russian troops, and there are tons of questions about it. This is kind of going to be the new normal. If you want to know what the next few years are going to look like as this plays out, look to the Cold War. A lot of staring at each other, a lot of brinksmanship, not a lot of actual shooting between these powers, because none of these countries actually wants a war with the other. Everybody's pretty comfortable in their position. They want to gain a little more power or whatever, but they certainly don't want to risk a war with a country that is nearly as powerful as they are. So the likelihood of these little staring contests actually turning into wars is pretty small, for the most part. Now, in the beginning, they're testing each other and there is some risk. The good news is that both China and Russia have very good intelligence services. When you're talking about intelligence work on this level, the main goal is to figure out the opposition country's intent, what they intend to do, what they are willing to do, what they want to do. It's not so much getting the schematics to the new jet fighter, it's knowing what the other country plans to do with that jet. That's the important part. So you're going to see more human intelligence and less signal, or more spies, less satellites. Okay? Since Russia and China are good, they're going to have a pretty good read on the US and NATO's intent. Meaning, this situation in Ukraine. Russian intelligence knows whether or not NATO is just going to roll over and let something happen. If Russian intelligence suggests that NATO would let it happen, well, Russia might go ahead and move in. If Russian intelligence suggests that, well, NATO wouldn't let it happen and they would fight back on behalf of Ukraine, well, then they wouldn't. Because none of these countries want to risk a war with each other. Now, the good news is that that's the current situation. You have a balance of power, and nobody wants to disrupt it because none of these countries are in real trouble. It's not ideological anymore. It's not capitalism versus communism. It's just about raw power, which, as horrible as that is, it kind of makes things safer. The downside to it is if any of these situations ever do get loud, they're going to get loud very quickly and they're going to be big. So while there will be less conflict, the risks are much greater. The stakes are higher if one does start. Which the main thing you can do is, one, when this happens, understand it's kind of normal. Understand there's nothing you can do about it. If something goes wrong, it's going to be one of these countries misreading the other's intent. And that's how it starts. Hopefully that won't happen. The other thing that you can do is curtail your media consumption. As we switch from engaging lesser powers to engaging near peers, it becomes really important for the American people to not consume sensationalized media, to not allow fear-mongering to occur for two reasons. One, you don't want to live your life in fear. Two, there are risks associated with that kind of content being consumed widely, because if a whole bunch of people are watching a news broadcast that says we need to do this to Russia, Russian intelligence may believe that's our intent. These tabloid news, in quotation, networks, they could quite literally start a war accidentally. So you might, if you do watch those shows, you might want to start limiting them because they need to become unprofitable so they stop making them. If this is going to be the focus of Biden's foreign policy, if this is how we're headed, this is the direction we're headed, we really need to curtail that because that can lead to really bad things happening. If you're not familiar with the Cold War and how everything worked, the Cuban Missile Crisis is a good example, but that is a really extreme example. Stuff like that happened all the time. Most times the quite literal nuclear option wasn't really on the table. So that's where we're at. As far as what's going on in Ukraine right now, do you need to worry? Probably not. This is kind of the opening gambit of this. It's probably not going to be a big deal. Now, the other side to that is that they are testing each other. So in the beginning, there actually kind of is a risk of misreading intent and something spiraling out of control. If it happens, you're probably not going to have any advance warning of it. It's just going to be, hey, we're at war now. It's not going, there won't be a lead up and a lot of manufacturing of consent. It's just going to occur. So that's where we're at. I don't foresee the situation currently in Ukraine. I don't see that getting too bad. It's probably going to be nothing. There's a risk, but more than likely the intention right now is to just get a read on each other and see how each country responds to these situations. And we'll probably see something very similar play out with China in the near future, because they're going to want to test the United States as well, to test the resolve. And the United States will probably make some kind of similar move against both of these nations in the near future. Not something that leads to actual shooting, but leads to mobilization, so we can see how they mobilize and get a read on them. Because all of this right now is about determining intent from the other side. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.